Abby.
And I'm Hope. And today we're going to talk to you about density. So when you think about density, you can think about the question, how do boats float? They're so heavy, but they are able to float on water and carry us across the ocean. I wonder how? So talking about density is similar to weight, and it's the amount of mass per volume of an object. So density is specific to each object, each substance. Everything has its own density, even you and I. So the differences in density between different substances is what allows them to float and sink with each other. So today we're going to see that happen by making a density tower. So the things that you're going to need to make this density tower is first a clear glass jar or cylinder, honey, corn syrup, regular syrup, milk, dish soap, water, vegetable oil, and a few different small solids such as a dice, a raisin, or a peanut. If you can't find all of these things in your house, that's totally fine. Just use what you're able to find and you'll still make a great tower. But first, before starting any experiment, remember to always be safe. Okay, let's get started. So the first step is to take your honey and pour a thin layer into your jar, but be sure that none of the honey touches the sides of the jar. After you add the first layer of honey, then add a layer of corn syrup and maple syrup, and again, be sure that none of it touches the side of the jar. Once you finish adding the syrups, add a thin layer of milk to the glass. After you add the milk, then we're going to add a layer of dish soap. Next up is the water. It would be really helpful to use something such as a gravy boat or a measuring cup to pour the water into the glass because it's so important that you pour it down the sides of the glass. Lastly, we're going to pour in some vegetable oil. And again, this needs to go down the side of the jar. Once you've poured in all of your liquids, wait a few minutes to watch all the layers settle before you add the solids. Once you've allowed all your layers to settle, you can add your solids into the jar. Be sure to add them at different areas around the edge of the jar and allow them to slide down the edge into the liquids. First we have a dice. Next we have a penny. Now we're going to add a peanut. Next we're going to add an M&M. Next, a raisin. And lastly, a bead. Now allow more time for your layers to resettle and your objects to find their place in the density tower. Make observations about why things are floating or sinking to the bottom. Things with higher density will sink to the bottom of the jar because they're heavier. Things with lighter density will float on top of the jar. Different things, such as the dice, will sink to the different layers that match their densities, because everything here is organized by density. So now, thinking back to the boat, how do boats float on water? What do you think, Hope?
I think that they must have a lighter density than the water, and so they can float on top.
Great job.